and get started. It looks like everyone has started to kind of roll in and get settled. So we're going to be going ahead and getting started. I want to officially introduce myself. I'm Christie Freeze. I am your host for today's conversation. And I'm so excited to invite you all to, or welcome you all to the Senior Living Sizzle. These are expert-led discussions on the industry's hottest topics. And if you're new to these conversations, welcome. We're glad you're here. The Sizzle is super powered by Heart Legacy, which is home to SalesMail, Senior Living's #1 video tool. And today we are diving into one of the hottest topics as of lately, one that we're likely going to be discussing for the foreseeable future, not just for January, and that is AI. This is also an extra special episode because we are donating $5 to the Alzheimer's Association every time AI is said. So Abby, I hope you're keeping tabs. All right, so we're going to be talking today about how we best prepare to integrate AI into our lives and the foundation and mindset that's needed in order to do so effectively. We're also going to be talking about what practical applications we can start exploring. And then our intention is to equip you with 3 easy, practical ways that you can start leveraging AI in senior living. We're joined today by our guests, Amber Bardon and Matt Reiners from Parasol Alliance. Thank you both so much for being here. If you're not familiar with these two, let's go ahead and have them introduce themselves. So Amber, let's go ahead and start with you.
Hey, everybody. I see a couple of our clients in the attendee list. So happy to see you guys here. Thanks for attending. I am Amber Bardon. I am the founder and CEO of Parasol Alliance. I've been in senior living for 18 years. Started Parasol 9 years ago and excited to be here.
Awesome. All right, Matt, what about you?
So, since we're giving $5 away, I got to start this off the right way, right? AI, 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 AI. AI, 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 AI. So there's a quick $50 right there. I totally lost track of the question because I was just prepping for that. But Chief Growth Officer at Parasol Alliance here. We're just really excited to dive deeper into this, where I'm using AI in my own personal life and how I'm starting to see the senior living really starting to transform by using it as well. And yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and dive in. Amber, I've got a question for you, so we'll go ahead and start with you. Just as it relates to foundations and doing the due diligence needed to really make sure that before launching an AI system or solution out into the ethers, what is kind of needed or what steps should people be thinking through before they do that?
So I love this question because everything we do here at Parasol Alliance is all about building a foundation and understanding the use case. And I know that there's a lot of veterans who've been in this industry for a long time on the call. And so we've all seen these new latest and greatest things come out. So in the past, it was EMR and what's an EMR versus an EHR and what's the cloud. And I think AI is the latest word that we're hearing. I mean, we all know that we've been to a conference and, we make jokes about how many times until we hear the word AI mentioned or how many times it's coming up. And I think the challenge here with this technology is, an EMR is self-explanatory. Like we know what that means. And I think AI is so new that, the entire world is finding out together what the capabilities are. And I just want to caution clients because we've had some clients come to us and say, well, we want to use AI. And it's like, well, what does that actually mean? Like, do you know what you're asking for? What's your use case? Or do you just want to say it's something that you have? So I think it's really important to understand what do you mean by AI? What are the actual problems you want to solve? Because we want to make sure that we're actually implementing effective systems that can produce positive results and affect actual change and transformation rather than just getting something because it sounds like the latest buzzword or because you met a vendor somewhere and they convinced you this was a great idea. So I think it's important to look at what problems are we trying to solve? Again, when we talk about AI, there's such a huge application, and we wrote a white paper about this. It's available on our website for free if anybody wants to read it. And we interviewed a lot of the major vendors in this space because it could be built into a software that you already have. So a lot of the resident engagement apps have AI built into them. It could be something like note-taking tools, which my coworker here, Matt Reiners, loves to use as AI note-taking tools. It could be as advanced as some of these co-pilot tools that can sit on top of your systems like Point Click Care, your financial systems, and pull actual generative AI database information for you, which sounds really cool and exciting. But I think we have to remember that we can't get data out unless we have data in our system. So if all your information is still in spreadsheets, that type of AI is not going to be useful for you. Same with like a KPI type system. So I think it's really important to just always take a step back, understand what are we trying to solve for, and then let's figure out how to solve this problem with AI being one of those options and not just something we're jumping to without fully understanding.
Beautifully said. I think it's super important to remember also that this is a tool, right? And there's something that you shared when we were preparing for this conversation that I thought was super important, super profound, is that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And that by treating it as a sprint, we could potentially make things worse, right? And we want to use this to enhance, optimize, to use Matt's word of the quarter, and to make things better and to make what we do better. So I love that. And one more quick follow-up question on that, because I know that this is what you guys do at Parasol Alliance, is helping to shift that culture and the mindset around tech as a whole, right? Yes, AI is a piece of that, but what are some things that you guys are doing or tips that you might have for people wanting to shift that culture?
So I think it really falls in line with the comments I made earlier. So we talk a lot about technology culture and we talk with our clients about technology culture. And I think the first thing to understand with that is that your leadership team needs to be aligned with what you want your technology culture to be, both for staff and residents. And, do you want to be on the cutting edge, the bleeding edge, the leading edge, there's probably other edges I'm missing, whatever behind edges, in the middle, where do you want to be? And I think you need to be in agreement because, so many times being in this industry for so long, and I'm sure everybody on this call can relate that, one department decides to go out and buy one type of technology. It's not fully vetted or the foundations aren't there and you're paying for something that never gets fully implemented. Maybe you've told residents about it and then they're frustrated that it never worked out or you didn't have the infrastructure to support it. So I think that it's really important to identify what are your technology priorities all around and where does AI and innovation fall amongst the other things that also need to get done from a process perspective, a business systems perspective, and infrastructure perspective. And I think by having that transparency in place with open conversations about where do you want to go, and again, going back to what problems are we solving, I think is how you can start to build that culture of embracing it. Because the last thing you want to do is just go out and buy the greatest thing without a good implementation plan. And then everyone's frustrated, like, oh, we always go out and buy this stuff and then we don't use it, or we just talk about doing it, we never follow through, or it's sort of half implemented.
Matt, anything you want to add to that?
Just what was the original question? It's just about
Foundations, tech culture, just shifting the culture. I think.
Yeah. So I think from what I've seen coming over here, so I come from like the resident tech side and now kind of overseeing like all the technology, it's definitely a top-down culture. And I think as we're looking at these staffing shortages and some of the other things that this industry is facing, technology is one of those things that I think could help connect a lot of those dots. And I think just embracing that and understanding it, but also acknowledging, right? Like I think a lot of people are scared about AI and becoming a humanoid robot that's, going around and taking over the nurse. But like, I look at it as more of a tool that's kind of been said already. And like, how do we optimize that to really enhance what we're doing in day to day and maximizing that human connection?
Beautiful. I love that. And even kind of on that nurse example, like it makes me think about I've worked in senior living communities for most of my career, and I know that the clinical team is busy, right? Well, everyone's busy, but they're busy. And if some of that charting or some of that more admin type stuff could be done, they get to spend even more time with their residents, right? Doing the human to human connection and care that is required. My next question is around kind of striking a balance. And we're kind of talking about that right now as far as AI versus humans and maintaining that separation and understanding that we're not being replaced. We are given a tool to enhance what we do as humans. So is there anything that, any tips or any thoughts you have on striking a balance between those two?
Yeah, so I'll give you the I think the phrase of this whole webinar, which is quote, automate the mundane and elevate the meaningful, end quote.
Beautiful.
So really when I think about that, right? Like using this as a tool to take over some of those tedious work, right? Like the data entry, answering some of those FAQs that are always happening to really elevate what we're doing, right? If we've got 40 hours in the week, I imagine a lot of us are working more than that. But if you can save 10 hours a week, what are you going to be spending that extra 10 hours on, right? It's going to be more of that meaningful stuff, maybe that human connection stuff to really push the business forward or really optimize what you're doing. And I know we've been talking about like the 3 ways to use AI in senior living. I just want to highlight one of those. So I recently interviewed Joe Velderman, VP of Innovation for Cypress Living, podcast, Raising Tech. Definitely check it out. I think it just came out a couple of weeks ago. And one of the really cool things that they're using for that is, they had a lot of internal questions popping up, right? Someone's on weekend, staff, a situation pops up, they're not sure what to do. Before they started implementing AI, they had this 200, 300 page binder. And what they did is basically uploaded that to Microsoft PureView, connected it with, a learning language management platform like ChatGPT. So someone can basically ask a question like, hey, I'm dealing with X. What is our standard operating procedure for that, right? So it's like an internal chatbot that they were able to create with some of their standard operating procedures to really help minimize the amount of time it would take for someone to ask a question, get back to them, and now they've got this built internally. So just one of the 3 ways that I've seen people do it.
Oh,
And with sales and
spoiler, we're
marketing,
gonna
I've
be
even seen people do that on the sales and marketing side, right? They take their SOPs, put it into a similar platform like that. So anywhere anybody, they might be dealing with discovery or deeper in the funnel, right? And they're able to ask what's best practices specific to our company and our organization to help maximize that opportunity to either, move that resident in or move them down further down the pipeline.
Yeah. And Christy, if I can jump in here, I think what Matt is saying is really important because, I started off answering my first question about all this new technology that we've seen in the last, 20 years in this industry. And I think what we don't talk enough about is the additional burden of time that these systems have placed on our staff, especially care staff. I mean, the amount of time people have to spend answering emails, the amount of time people have to spend documenting in the EMR. And I think that's the burden that is not necessarily acknowledged or planned for in a lot of cases, especially when we have staff that aren't as tech savvy. And this is where I think the true power of AI can come in, where we can try to automate this so that we can get our data in much more efficiently and time effectively, if that's a word, time efficiently, and then be able to then have that output where we can get our data out for data-driven decisions.
I love that. And we're going to be giving you guys way more than 3 ways to use AI. So thank you, Matt, for kicking us off with that. Okay. So I do think that it is a good time for us to start shifting into some more practical use cases. I know we've talked a lot about how Matt's personally using it, maybe how I'm personally using it. So Matt, I would love if you could kind of take us through maybe like when you very, very first got introduced to ChatGPT or whatever system you're using, and kind of like, I know we don't have a ton of time, but maybe walk us through what that looked like when you were first getting started and kind of how it translates now to how you're using it.
For sure. So I remember the day that I was first introduced to ChatGPT,
Was it
and
beautiful?
I think natural getting introduced to it. My first prompt to it was to write my wife a love poem, and it spit something out very quick. I then read it to my wife. She had no idea that anything wrote it besides myself. I read it to her, and she cried, and I felt so bad that like this chatbot created that. So it definitely I did tell her afterwards for the record. But I think how that's kind of evolved over time, right? Is the way that I've started using AI. So definitely ChatGPT consistently. I think, the way that I think about it, I still have to have the ideas. It just helps me to put the framework together of like what that can look like and what I've done with my own. So I've created my own GPT, just have the premium version of ChatGPT. So I call it Matt GPT. So whenever someone on my team asks for something, I say Matt GPT helped. I'm not lying to them. Amber knows that. I say that quite frequently. But I basically I was able to export all my LinkedIn messages. I got 14,000 lines of my voice uploaded into it to find my tonality, my level of professionalism and stuff like that to really just teach this the way that I speak so I can put things into my own words, into my own writing. And that's just ChatGPT. A couple of other things I've started using Motion AI, which is something that's basically creates my calendar for me. I just have to put the projects that I'm working on in there and then it'll just fill it in based on level of priority and due dates. So with my ADHD, it's super helpful that I come in the morning, my calendar is already created for me, and it's set up that if someone does book time with me, they can schedule over it. It just adjusts my calendar from there. If you're familiar with me, I run a podcast, probably 140 episodes now. Use a platform called Riverside that's taken my editing down by like 95%. Used to spend, 3 hours pumping everything out. I've got it down now to 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So Also like Read AI, Plot AI to like record meetings. Love taking the transcripts, putting it in the chat GPT, getting summaries, getting to-dos out of that. And then, I think it's really just, I forgot what it was like to work without it, unfortunately, which I think is a blessing and a curse. And, it's really helped to transform even my own productivity where I can pump out more and it's actually at a higher quality than it was before.
I have learned so much from you. So I love that you just share a little bit more of how you're using this. I personally am still a little new. I know I shared something on LinkedIn earlier in just promoting this that it's still somewhat new for me. I'm still in the like writing love poems phase, Matt. No, but there are folks on our team that have taught me about creating a meal plan, creating a grocery list, like anything that you would potentially use brain space for that you don't need to. I will say that I have found personally, I think I have more creative freedom. Like when I very first kind of started dabbling in it, it's not replacing my ideas. It's helping me refine some of my ideas and make them be more concise and valuable. And so I think that that's really, for me, been super, super impactful.
Yeah, and to your point about, because I think, if people want to get their feet, put their toes into AI and using it, I think you may get a good call of like using it in your personal life. So I've started using this, like even just this last weekend. I had to create recipes for me, pick the recipes I wanted, had to create the shopping list for that based on the aisle. And then I basically just went, ordered it all online, scheduled the pickup. So got all my meals ready for the week that will need to cook. All will take less than 30 minutes. But that's probably saved me 2 to 3 hours from, I think over the week. And like now, what am I going to do at that time? Right. I can be a better dad, a better partner, and taking out some of that. I'm going to go back to that quote from before, but automate the mundane and elevate the meaningful, and taking out some of those things that I need to get done, right? But like just trying to figure out of what that can look like.
That quote's going to live on for decades to come. I can feel it in my bones. I love that. We only have 10 minutes left, friends. So let's talk actually about specific senior living use cases. I know Matt shared one already. Are there any specific use cases for senior living sales and marketing teams that you can see be really effective or helpful, especially if they're still just getting started in it? Either of you can go.
Yeah, so I see a huge opportunity, especially for the marketing teams, just in terms of content creation, right? So like what anybody on this call can go do, take all the copy on your website, right? Any external facing copy, your brochures, your blog posts, put that into a GPT, identify your tonality, right? And the way that you're talking about things to kind of teach it that. And then what I would do is lean into AI to identify like what are some of the top 10 issues that baby boomers are facing, adult children are facing today. And, that's pulling from different resources. I've seen things that will pull it out of like Reddit and different things like that. Like, what are the main issues that these people are facing? And then going and creating content around that. And I think with something like that, right? Like I would not copy and paste it directly out of that. A key way to tell if someone's using a generative platform like that in their writing, if they've got the dash, right? If you see like the long dash, I don't even know where to use the dash myself. If it's a colon or semicolon, this is why I have a premium version of Grammarly to help me with those things. But what I would say is like it does 80% of the work for you, right? And then able to take that, repurpose that content, I think is a great way to do that. So in terms of like blog writing or email campaigns or social media posts, and then there's platforms like I know Canva's got an AI opportunity within it, like creating images and stuff around that. Like I do think you can create content at scale now and do it with a smaller team and really help to prioritize what that could look like. So I would say that would be another one of the three. I've got one more unless Amber's got one.
No, why don't you keep going? I'll
Ooh,
comment when you're done.
sounds good. And then the other one, I think there's a huge opportunity. So I think as salespeople, right? Like there's been a transformation. Yeah, granted, depending on who you ask, maybe it's always been the most important thing, but the key in discovery, right? Like understanding who are you selling to and like what are their pain points and what are those things are. And like I don't know how people are using it today, but like if I've seen CRMs that will record calls and stuff. So like whereas there's a huge opportunity, I think, in one of two ways with this, right? So one, if you're doing the discovery, if it's being stored somewhere automatically, right? Or maybe you're doing it manually, but maybe you learn someone, was played baseball in their previous life, were in the Navy and some of the other things, and just putting that into a chat GPT to get some thoughts for just like, how can I personalize some thoughts, or just, I wouldn't, it's still being a level of authentic with it, right? Like you don't want to start saying, asking questions about the Navy, making it seem like you're in the Navy, right? Because that's just going to be fake. But I think there's a level of personalization that we can do to really craft tailored, follow-up messages and really the best engagement strategy. And I think a huge opportunity for sales teams too. Like, let's say if those calls are being recorded in some capacity, if you're getting the transcript, put that into, Chat GPT, other platforms that you're using. Basically say to it, be like, hey, I want you to act as a sales coach and look through this. And give me any points where I could have asked a better question, or any indicators that you saw. Like, and there's even components where with ChatGPT, I was doing this morning where, you can set up like the feature where you're live speaking and you can tell it like, I want you to be an adult child. These are your problems, and you can role play at whenever you want. And I'm about to turn my GPT and my therapist coach, I think. I've got nothing too crazy to hide, so I can put it into the world. But I would say with, AI, just be nice to it in case it does ever take over. So if it's, in your digital file that you use, your manners. So just make sure of that. I've had to teach my wife because she's
Always
yelled
very
at.
nice.
Yeah, you got to be nice. My wife has been known to yell at, I won't say her name because she's right over here, but not my wife, but Alexa. So just like keeping that hyper focus. And I think, it can play so many different roles. And again, you have to have the ideas. And I think being creative is like the key to using it, right? And then continuing to push the boundaries with that. And then the other thing I would ask too, I think from a learning perspective, I had this aha moment the other day in the shower when I was reading this 250-page book that could have been probably summarized in 10 pages. What I'm doing
Wait,
now is
did
just
you just say
taking,
you were reading a book in the shower?
no, no,
I,
no, no.
I
I
was
had
going
an
to
aha
revisit that.
moment from reading a book.
Okay.
But like, I'm reading a 250-page book about around hook points, right? Like, if you're in marketing, you're familiar with what that is. There's so much fluff in this thing. So now what I'm trying to do is basically find that PDF, take that PDF, or take best practices, get the summary for me so I understand the concepts that I can kind of pull on that information, uploading that into my GPT, and basically having that be my brain to memorize and remember everything. And then I can just pull on that information as needed.
Mic drop.
Just try to clone myself and make way better. And my AI version of me has hair, for the record. So yes,
Oh, okay.
but
We can't wait to
yeah,
see a
yeah.
photo of him.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Christy, in the couple of minutes we have left, I can just add my perspective. I do not use AI on a regular basis. So, if anybody on this call is feeling like you're in the camp where you're a little bit unsure on how to use it, I just want to say that I am not a user. So, I rely on Matt GPT to do a lot of that on my behalf. So, I haven't jumped into personally using it yet. So, I can understand if there's like hesitation or concerns about it. But I think everything Matt said is a great starting point for you to use. And I can't really speak too much to the sales and marketing side of AI. That's a lot more Matt's world. But we also have a podcast called Raising Tech, and we've had a lot of vendors in there talking about how they're using AI. We did an AI webinar. So if anybody on this call is interested in learning about AI applications in more clinical or resident engagement or falls prevention type settings, I would say that's a great free resource to check out is Raising Tech podcast. And I think I mentioned a couple of use cases earlier with just being able to do data and data-driven decisions. And I think that is something that I personally find really exciting to be able to ask your systems as if you're asking your phone for information that it can search and give you generative AI answers. So I think that's pretty cool.
And I just want to shout out our host and their platform, because I think they're using AI in a great use case, right? To me, it seems simple. I'm a SalesMail user, big fan of it. And one of the things they do now, because before, I would have to basically title every video, and I would never title them, and I would lose them all the time. But now there's an AI function where it basically, I would imagine, takes my transcripts, comes up with a short, catchy title, automatically puts it in there to just make my organization that much easier. And like, that's a great example and use case of AI to, again, and I keep forgetting it, automate the mundane and elevate the meaningful, right? So taking those, maybe 30 seconds each time, right? But that adds up if you're sending out all of these all day. And like, that's just a great example of how I think AI can be used in the short run.
Thank you so much, Matt, for that beautiful shout out. It has certainly enhanced and elevated my more meaningful conversation and definitely automated the mundane. So love this quote, love our AI functionality within SalesMail. And yeah, I think that just enhancing what we're doing, right? Versus completely replacing what we're doing. Thank you all so much for being here today. To our guest, thank you so much for bringing your experience, your expertise, spending time with us. To our audience, we appreciate you spending 30 minutes of your time and attention with us. We know that that is, a big ask. So stay tuned. We were going to announce how many times AI was said during today's Senior Living Sizzle, how much money we'll be donating to the Alzheimer's Association. If you've got any questions for us, of course, drop them in. Oh, total donation, $315.
And
Awesome.
RC, I would call that caffeinated passion. But yeah, I've had like 4 iced coffees, straight black today, and I haven't ate yet. So that's
He's always
probably,
like this.
yeah.
I do feel like this is your consistent state of
ADHD.
energy. Someone does say they would love a list of AI tools that you mentioned, Matt, and their use cases. I would encourage you to follow Matt on LinkedIn if you're not already. He does do an incredible job of sharing prompts with us, sharing the tools that he's using, sharing practical applications.
I did post this. Gosh, this was 7 months ago. I don't know if I can put it in the real chat, because it looks like I can only do host and panelist. So I don't know if someone can put that in there, but that was basically just highlighting all the ones that I used today, and it pretty much lines up. I didn't say all those. Question: what types of programs or campaigns do you recommend automating for prospects? So I think when I think of prospects and like the automation, right? I think the lead list is super important, right? Like, how are you reaching out to these people? Where parts are they in the funnel, right? Like, there's simple things. And, I'm always hesitant to like hyper automate any sales related things because I think there's a level of personalization and authenticity that needs to come through in order to do that. But like, let's say if you've got, a database of 1,000 leads and they're all just kind of getting the same marketing emails right now, like, they're all in different parts of the buying journey. They're probably, one might be wanting to move in. They might be looking for their family members. So like, what resources are we giving them, right? So like, if it's a adult child, I might be giving them a resource of like how to have this conversation with mom or dad. If it is someone that might be moving in and looking for themselves, like, all the benefits of the socialization and sharing the events that are coming up. So like, I would look at it more of like those along those lines, to basically create the content specific to the end user, and what are some of their pain points, right? And like, there's ways you can do that based on data labeling to really hyper focus the right things to the right people at the right time.
Thank you, Matt, for answering that question for everyone. Be sure, like I said, to connect with Matt and Amber, connect with Parasol Alliance. We are so thankful to partner with you all and have you as guests today. All right. Bye, friends. We'll see you next time.